All right, we do have breaking news. A whole lot going on all of a sudden inside the closing arguments in the defamation damages trial against Donald Trump. Trump walked into the courtroom late. He walked out when the plaintiffs were delivering their closing arguments. At one point, the judge had to warn defense lawyers they were close to being thrown in the lockup. Let's get right to CNN's Kara Scannell, who ran out from inside that courtroom to give us an explanation of what was going on. Kara, what have you been seeing?
Yeah, John, an eventful day this morning, to say the least, that had nothing to do with even the closing arguments. So it began, as you say, when Donald Trump's team was already late, which the judge noted when he took the bench. Then Donald Trump did enter the courtroom, and they were arguing still, before the jury even got in there, about a slide that Trump's team wanted to use in their presentation. And Carol's lawyers said it included things that were not in evidence in the case. The judge said it was out. That's when Trump's attorney, Alina Habba, stood up to challenge the judge on his ruling. He's made it very clear throughout this trial, when he rules, and that's it. She started to challenge him. He had hit his limit and said, "You are on the verge of spending some time in the lockup. Now sit down." Now, then at this point, we were moving into closing arguments. The jury was brought in, and Carol's team started their statements by telling the jury, what this case was about, the statements that Donald Trump had made. And Carol's attorney, Roberta Kaplan, was specifically saying at this moment that Trump didn't respect the jury verdict last year, and that he hasn't even respected it. He didn't even respect it for 24 hours, because that's when he went on the CNN town hall, repeating the statements that the jury had just found to be defamatory. It was at that moment that Trump got up from his seat, just stood up, turned, and walked out of the courtroom abruptly. That moment, the judge interrupted Carol's attorney, saying, for the record, for the court reporter to say that Donald Trump had just got up and left the courtroom. And then Carol's lawyer continued doing her closing arguments. And on the closing arguments, on the merit of this case, she's reminding the jury that Trump is not above the law, that anyone should be held responsible for statements anyone else would. And so Donald Trump should also. They are asking the jury to award Carol more than $12 million in this case, John.
Did Trump ever walk back in, Kara, that you saw?
No, Trump hasn't returned. One of his lawyers, Boris Epshteyn, who works with him on the campaign, did walk back into the courtroom at one point and was standing, and the judge told him, calling him out by name, to sit down. So the judge is not taking any more interruptions in this case, and we have not seen Donald Trump appear. We also haven't seen the motorcade leave, so it appears to still be in the courthouse, just not in the courtroom.
So he's somewhere, presumably inside that courthouse, maybe waiting for when his attorneys present their closing arguments. Any sense of when that will begin?
So Carol's team has said they would go for about an hour, and they had a little bit of a late start, so she probably has a bit more to go. But then we do expect Alina Habba, Trump's attorney, to do her closing statement. They also estimate that will be an hour, and then the judge will instruct the jury. So I think we are going to look to see if he does return when his lawyer is giving the statements. But what's so interesting, John, at the outset of this, the judge said he didn't want anyone, not the parties, not the individuals, no one in the courtroom, to do anything to interrupt these closing arguments.
Yeah, well, see how that's gone so far. I mean, obviously, an eventful morning, as you say. Kara, it's terrific having you explain to us what you're seeing here, because it isn't unfolding, I think, as the judge was hoping. Kara Scannell, outside court. We'll let you get back inside. Keep us posted.
I want to bring in former U.S. Attorney Harry Litman to think through this case with us. First of all, the judge literally threatened Trump's attorneys with jail time potentially because of their rule-breaking antics in court, never mind their clients' antics in court. How might this all affect the jury? Because in the end, they're the ones that decide what these damages are going to be.
And her lawyer has been very savvy in showing them they have the power, they alone have the responsibility. Now, the comment that we just heard didn't happen in front of the jury, but he has plenty of times uprated her in front of the jury. And I just want to say about Trump's exit today, that might be a surprise or drama on TV. In real life, in federal court, it is mind-boggling. It just doesn't happen. And of course, it just drips with contempt for the whole process, for the plaintiff, for the jury. It's almost calculated. First, he proves the very point that that the lawyer was saying. He thinks the rules don't apply to him. Everybody everybody sit still and respectfully for a closing argument, and it virtually begs the jury to impose stratospheric punitive damages.
I know that you've been in plenty of courtrooms, and I've certainly been in plenty of federal courtrooms watching cases, and I've never seen anything like that. Some people might say this is something that rhymes with a skit show. But Carroll's attorney told jurors to decide what it will take to get Donald Trump to stop. What do you think that will do when the jury hears that? And John just mentioned it was something about what happened before, but also what was happening right then.
Right, and there's two parts to it. One, his utter incorrigibility and nastiness, repeating it again and again, but also, and they've entered into evidence, his wealth, probably, in fact, and ironically, inflated accounts of his wealth. So I don't know if there's a calculator high enough for what they might be thinking about. At the end of the day, there'll be a issue on appeal whether maybe they went too high, but really they're just completely, I think, given the freedom, but a sort of sober task of really what could make him stop. It's only money, so how high can you go?
Yeah.